"You have to do this, Emma. He's your brother." My mother's voice was cold, her eyes harder than I'd ever seen them. I sat in their pristine living room, clutching the medical consent forms they thrust into my hands moments earlier. My brother Michael's kidney failure wasn't a surprise. He'd been living recklessly for years, drinking heavily despite warnings from his doctors. "I don't have to do anything," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Michael made his choices. Why should I risk my life for someone who's never cared about mine?" My father slammed his hand on the coffee table, making me jump. "Because we're family," he roared. "Because after everything we've given you, you owe us this much." "Everything they'd given me?" I almost laughed. For 28 years, I'd watched them shower Michael with endless love, support, and money, while I worked 3 jobs to put myself through nursing school. Every achievement of mine was dismissed, every milestone overshadowed by whatever minor accomplishment Michael had managed that week. "We'll cut you off completely," my mother threatened, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against her designer handbag. "No inheritance, no family connection, nothing. Is that what you want?" I looked around at the family photos covering the walls. In every single one, Michael stood front and center, while I was relegated to the edges, an afterthought in my own family's narrative. Even now, with his health failing due to his own poor choices, they were choosing him over my well-being. "The surgery is risky," I said, my medical training kicking in. "There are no guarantees it'll even work, especially given his lifestyle." "He's changed," my mother insisted. "He's promised to stop drinking. He's ready to turn his life around, but he needs this chance." "You can't be so selfish, Emma." Selfish. That word had been weaponized against me my entire life. I was selfish for wanting new school supplies when Michael needed sports equipment. Selfish for applying to medical school when Michael needed tuition for his 3rd attempt at community college. Selfish for not giving him money when he gambled away his trust fund. "Fine," I said finally, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "I'll do it. But I have conditions." My father's face darkened. "You're in no position to make demands." "Actually, I am. I'm the only match you found after testing the entire family. So you'll listen to what I have to say." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, but she nodded curtly. "I want to see all of Michael's medical records before the surgery. Every test, every scan, everything. And I want to choose the surgical team." "That's ridiculous," my father started, but my mother touched his arm. "Fine," she said. "Whatever you need, just save your brother." I signed the initial consent forms, my hand trembling slightly. As a nurse, I knew exactly what I was agreeing to: the risks, the recovery time, the potential complications. But something felt off about the whole situation. Michael hadn't even bothered to ask me himself, sending our parents to do his dirty work as usual. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital where I worked, ready to review Michael's files before meeting with the surgical team. My colleague, Dr. Sarah Martinez, gave me an odd look when I requested access. "Your brother's files?" she asked, frowning. "But I thought, didn't you see them last month?" I shook my head, confused. "No, I just agreed to the donation yesterday." Sarah's face went pale. "Emma, wait here," she said, hurrying to her office. She returned with a thick manila folder, her expression grave. "You need to see this," she said, placing the folder in front of me. "And you need to know that what your family is doing, it's not just unethical, it's criminal." My hands shook as I opened the folder, and suddenly everything I thought I knew about my family, about Michael's condition, about the sacrifice I was being forced to make, shattered into a million pieces. The truth staring back at me from those medical records would change everything forever. The medical records in front of me told a story so twisted, I had to read them 3 times to believe what I was seeing. Michael didn't have kidney failure, at least not the kind my parents had claimed. The damage to his kidneys wasn't from drinking or his reckless lifestyle. It was from a rare genetic condition, one that had been diagnosed when he was just 16. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. "They knew?" I whispered, flipping through page after page of documented visits, treatments, and consultations. "They've known for 12 years. Sarah nodded grimly. "There's more. Look at the genetic testing results." My hands trembled as I turned to the lab reports. The condition was hereditary, passed down through both parents. According to the genetic counseling notes, any biological sibling would have a 25% chance of carrying the same mutation. "But I was never tested," I said, my voice rising. "They never told me I could be at risk." That's because they did test you, Emma, when you were 16, the same time they tested Michael. I stared at her, uncomprehending. Then I found it, my own genetic test results buried in Michael's file. I was not only free of the condition, I was a perfect match for organ donation. The reality hit me like a physical blow. They'd known since I was a teenager that I could be a donor for Michael. They'd been planning this for years, watching me work my way through nursing school, waiting until I was established enough in my career to survive the surgery and recovery. "There's a note here from Dr. Harrison," Sarah said quietly, pointing to a recent entry. "He refused to perform the surgery when he realized you hadn't been informed of your previous testing. That's why they're pushing so hard for it now. They're running out of doctors willing to do it." I felt sick. Every sacrifice I'd made, every time they'd chosen Michael over me. It wasn't just favoritism. They'd been protecting their investment, their insurance policy for Michael's future. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Did you schedule the pre-op appointment yet? We need to move quickly." Another buzz. "Michael's getting worse. Don't you care about your brother at all?" The manipulation that had worked on me for years suddenly felt transparent and cruel. I thought about all the times they'd guilted me about money, about time, about attention, all while knowing they were grooming me for this moment. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked, her hand on my shoulder. I stood up, gathering the records with shaking hands. "First, I'm making copies of everything. Then I'm going to have a conversation with my family that's long overdue." I drove to my parents' house, the copied records sitting heavy in my bag. Through the front window, I could see Michael lounging on the couch, playing video games, hardly the picture of someone in desperate need of an organ transplant. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Finally, we need to discuss the surgery schedule." "No," I cut her off, walking past her into the living room. "We need to discuss these." I pulled out the medical records, watching as the color drained from her face. "Where did you get those?" my father demanded, standing up from his armchair. "Does it matter? What matters is that I know everything. The genetic testing, the planning, all of it. You've been preparing for this since I was 16. Michael paused his game, looking confused. "What's she talking about?" "They never told you either, did they?" I turned to my brother. "They tested both of us as teenagers. They've known for 12 years that you'd eventually need a transplant and that I could be your donor. They've been planning this my entire adult life." The silence in the room was deafening. Michael's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, shock, anger. "Is this true?" he asked our parents. "You knew all this time?" "We were protecting you," our mother said desperately. "Both of you. We didn't want you to live in fear, Michael and Emma." Emma needed to focus on her studies, on becoming successful enough to handle the surgery. "Successful enough to be useful, you mean," I corrected her. "That's all I've ever been to you. A spare parts warehouse for your precious son." "Now listen here," my father started, but I held up my hand. "No, you listen. The surgery isn't happening. Not now, not ever. I've already reported this to the medical board. No ethical doctor will touch this case once they know the full story." My mother burst into tears, the manipulative sobs I'd fallen for so many times before. But this time, they held no power over me. "You can't do this," she wailed. "He's your brother." "Yes, he is," I agreed, turning to Michael. "And if you want to have any kind of relationship with me going forward, it starts with the truth. All of it." I walked out of that house feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts, calls, voicemails, all demanding I come back, threatening consequences, begging for understanding. I deleted them all. This wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot, but for the first time in my life, I was writing my own chapters. The fallout was nuclear. Within days, my parents' carefully constructed facade began to crumble. The medical board launched an investigation, focusing on how they had concealed my previous testing and manipulated medical information. Several doctors who had refused to perform the surgery came forward, sharing documentation of my parents' attempts to pressure them into proceeding without my informed consent. What surprised me most was Michael's reaction. After the initial shock wore off, he showed up at my apartment one rainy evening, looking more sober and serious than I'd ever seen him. "I didn't know," he said, standing awkwardly in my doorway, "about any of it. I swear, Emma." I believed him. Michael had always been spoiled and entitled, but he wasn't cruel, just deeply damaged by our parents' toxic favoritism. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. We need to talk. Over coffee, Michael revealed his own struggles with our parents' manipulation. They never told me how serious the condition was, he admitted. Just kept saying they had it handled, that I shouldn't worry. Every time I tried to take responsibility for my health, they shut it down. They infantilized you while parentifying me, I observed. Classic narcissistic family dynamics. The investigation uncovered more than just medical ethical violations. Financial records showed our parents had set up a secret trust in my name when I was 16. Not for my benefit, but to cover future medical expenses for Michael. They'd been siphonning money from my inheritance, preparing for the inevitability of the transplant. Dr. Harrison, the physician who had refused to perform the surgery, became my strongest ally. He helped me file a formal complaint and connected me with other medical professionals who had encountered similar situations. What they did wasn't just unethical, he explained during a meeting with the medical board. It was a calculated, long-term plan to deny their daughter medical autonomy while using her as a living organ bank. My parents' response was predictable. They launched a smear campaign within our extended family, painting me as the ungrateful daughter who would let her brother die. But their efforts backfired when Michael, for the first time in his life, stood up to them. "Emma's not the problem," he announced during a family gathering they'd orchestrated to pressure me. "You are. You've been playing God with both our lives, and I'm done." That was the moment everything truly changed. Michael moved out of our parents' house and into a small apartment. He started attending therapy, confronting not just his medical condition but the psychological damage our parents had inflicted. I received a call from our Aunt Catherine, our father's sister, a month after the truth came out. "I should have seen it," she said, her voice heavy with regret. "The way they treated you, I always knew it was wrong, but I never imagined the extent of their manipulation." The medical board's investigation concluded with severe repercussions for several healthcare providers who had enabled our parents' scheme. My parents faced legal consequences for their actions, including financial fraud related to the secret trust. But the real healing began when Michael and I started rebuilding our relationship without our parents' toxic influence. We found a specialist who helped us understand his condition and develop a proper treatment plan, one that didn't involve sacrificing my health. "I never wanted your kidney," he told me one day as we left a doctor's appointment. "I just wanted a sister." 6 months after the confrontation, I received a letter from my mother. It was full of the same manipulative language, the same guilt trips, but now I could see through every word. "Your brother's condition is worsening," she wrote. "How will you live with yourself if something happens to him?" I showed the letter to my therapist, who helped me draft a response. "Michael's condition is being properly managed by competent medical professionals. He's taking responsibility for his health, something you never allowed him to do. If you want any relationship with either of your children, you need to do the same." They never replied. Today, Michael is doing well on his medication regimen. He's sober, employed, and building a life independent of our parents' control. We have dinner together every Sunday, sharing stories and support, healing from decades of manipulation. As for me, I've become an advocate for organ donor rights, working with medical ethics boards to prevent similar situations. The experience changed me profoundly, but not in the way my parents intended. Instead of breaking me, it made me stronger. Sometimes healing means cutting away the diseased parts of your life, even when those parts are family. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. And sometimes the family you rebuild from the ashes is stronger than the one that tried to burn you. Hi, I'm Maria. Growing up in a cozy suburban home, I always felt overshadowed by the towering presence of my older sister, Mary. Our parents adored her, hanging on her every word, while I was just the other daughter. One fateful night, Mary's jealousy took a dark turn. I woke to a cold draft and the sharp snip of scissors. My heart pounded as I touched my head, only to find my long, cherished hair brutally chopped and scattered across my pillow. There stood Mary, scissors in hand, a twisted smirk playing on her lips. "Mary, what have you done?" I choked out, tears filling my eyes. "Oh, come on, Maria. It's just hair. It'll grow back," she said dismissively, twirling the scissors like a prize. I couldn't comprehend her cruelty. In a daze, I rushed to our parents' room, desperate for justice. "Mom, Dad, look what Mary did." I cried, holding up the severed locks, my voice trembling. But they were groggy and irritated, hardly sympathetic. "Maria, it's the middle of the night," Dad grumbled. This is ridiculous. Please, Mom, you have to see what she's done to me, I begged. Mom sighed, rubbing her temples. Can't this wait till morning? No, it can't. I protested, the weight of betrayal crashing over me. As the argument escalated, Mary waltzed in, playing innocent. I was just trying to help her, she said sweetly. She always complained about how long her hair was. Help? You call this help? I was incredulous. Our parents exchanged weary glances. Maria, maybe she was just trying to. To what, Mom? Ruin me? I cut her off, feeling the sting of injustice. The room's tension thickened as I pleaded for understanding, but Dad's voice boomed with finality. Maria, that's enough. We won't tolerate this ingratitude and disrespect. Disrespect? I echoed, my voice breaking. I'm the victim here. Mom's ultimatum was ice cold. Either apologize to Mary or leave. Apologize? For being attacked in my sleep? The unfairness was suffocating. My heart shattered as I realized I was alone, even among my own family. With tears streaming down my face, I grabbed a few belongings and stepped out into the night. The door slammed behind me, echoing my devastation. Alone and betrayed, I wandered through the silent streets, my suitcase my only companion. When I reached Lena's apartment, it felt like a beacon in a storm. She opened the door, her eyes widening in disbelief. Maria, what on earth happened? They kicked me out, I said, the tears spilling over. Lena ushered me inside, offering a safe harbor as I recounted the night's events. Her shock turned to outrage. Stay here as long as you need, she said firmly, but staying wasn't enough. I needed to find my footing, so I threw myself into work, waitressing by day, cashiering in the evenings, and dog walking on weekends. The grueling hours slowly nurtured a sense of independence. Then one day, Mr. Jacobs walked into the diner. An elderly man with kind eyes, he always left generous tips. You're such a hard worker, Maria. Ever thought of a quieter job? He asked. A quieter job? I echoed. My bookstore, he replied. I could use someone trustworthy to help run it. His offer was a lifeline. Working at Jacobs Books felt like coming home. Surrounded by the musty scent of old books, I found solace. Mr. Jacobs believed in me in ways I never believed in myself. You're meant for bigger things, Maria. Don't let this define you, he'd say. His words echoed as I sat across from Miss Turner, a sharp-minded legal advisor recommended by a bookstore regular. Her office was cluttered with books and legal files, a testament to her busy career. Your parents kicking you out like that? It's not just morally wrong, it's legally questionable, Miss Turner said, poring over the notes I'd made. So there's something I can do? I asked, hope mixed with uncertainty. Yes, she said, but it'll require work, evidence, documentation, anything to support your story. It's your word against theirs. But if we can prove a pattern of behavior, we might have a case. I left her office not just with advice, but with a mission. In my small rented apartment, I began meticulously documenting everything: text messages, emails, any scrap of evidence that could illuminate the mistreatment I had endured from my family. But gathering evidence was just the beginning. I needed a plan that would bring everything into the open and force my family to confront the consequences of their actions. My nights were spent researching, my days focused on assembling information. I reached out to old friends and neighbors, carefully building my case. Each piece of evidence was like a brick in the fortress I was constructing. Document everything. Leave no stone unturned, Miss Turner advised in our weekly meetings. So that's exactly what I did. As my plan took shape, I felt a transformation within me. I was no longer just a victim of my circumstances. I was the architect of my destiny. The girl who had been cast out was now ready to stand her ground. I was determined to bring the truth to light, no matter what it took. Months of preparation led to this moment. My plan was meticulous. Every detail had been carefully thought out. The evidence against my family was compiled, a blend of solid proof and strategic tactics. I started with Mary. She had a knack for twisting reality, especially on social media, where she curated her perfect life. I monitored her posts, knowing her image was her greatest pride. Mary loves the spotlight, I murmured to myself. Let's give her a show. I began a subtle campaign, posting old photos of us with cryptic captions, missing the sisterly love. People took notice. Questions were asked, and whispers began to circulate. I carefully shared stories and evidence with mutual friends, never revealing too much at once. Mary's pristine image began to crack. Simultaneously, I assembled a legal arsenal: old email exchanges, voicemails, medical records, anything that illustrated years of favoritism and neglect. Miss Turner was instrumental, guiding me through the complexities of the legal system. "The stronger your case, the harder they'll fall, Maria," she encouraged. With everything ready, I waited for the perfect moment: our extended family's annual reunion. It was the ideal stage, an audience composed of everyone who needed to hear the truth. As I walked into the gathering, I felt the tension. Mary greeted me with a forced smile, while my parents barely hid their disdain. Dinner was a haze of superficial conversation and strained politeness. Then, as everyone settled in the living room, I stood up and cleared my throat. The room grew silent. "I have something to share," I began, my voice unwavering. I recounted the hair-cutting incident, the years of neglect, the night I was thrown out. With each word, the tension in the room thickened. My parents and Mary sat frozen, their faces a cocktail of fear and anger. "Maria, what is this nonsense?" Dad spluttered. "It's not nonsense, Dad. It's the truth." I held up the evidence: photos, emails, testimonies. The reality laid bare sent the room into chaos. Disbelief and outrage erupted. "Mary, how could you?" one aunt exclaimed. "Maria, why didn't you ever say anything?" a cousin asked, aghast. Amid the uproar, I made a call. "Miss Turner," I said, my voice steady. "It's done. They know everything." "Good," she replied. "I'll take it from here." As the night unraveled, the facade of my perfect family crumbled. Legal proceedings were initiated, and my family's reputation was left in tatters. For the first time, I felt a sense of closure. The road ahead was still long, but justice was within reach. The courtroom, a stark contrast to the chaotic reunion, felt both intimidating and empowering. Everything was calm and orderly, yet charged with anticipation. I sat next to Miss Turner, composed but anxious. "Miss Turner, are we ready for this?" I whispered. "We've been ready, Maria. Today justice will be served," she replied, giving me a reassuring smile. As the judge called the court to order, the silence was deafening. Miss Turner began our case with a calm, confident precision, presenting the emails, the photos, the testimonies. Each piece of evidence drove a nail into the coffin of my family's lies. My parents and Mary sat next to their lawyer, their faces reflecting a mixture of anger and fear. Mary cut her hair in her sleep. Miss Turner recounted firmly, and when Maria sought support from her family, she was thrown out like a criminal. The judge listened intently, occasionally nodding as the story unfolded, gripping the courtroom. When it was my family's turn, their lawyer attempted to minimize the events, dismissing them as ordinary family disagreements. "It's just sibling rivalry," he argued. "Sibling rivalry?" I blurted out, unable to contain myself. "They left me homeless." The judge cautioned me to remain quiet, but I could see a hint of sympathy in his eyes. The proceedings dragged on, yet with every word spoken, the truth became increasingly undeniable. In the end, the judgment was swift and just. My parents and Mary were found guilty of emotional abuse and wrongful eviction. The sound of the gavel striking was like music to my ears. Outside the courtroom, I was greeted by a crowd of supporters and curious media. The story had resonated with the public, a tale of family betrayal and a battle for justice. "Maria, how do you feel about the verdict?" a reporter asked. "Relieved," I replied, feeling the weight of years finally lifting off my shoulders. "And hopeful. This isn't just my victory. It's for anyone who has ever faced family injustice." In the weeks that followed, I turned my story into a force for change. I spoke at events, joined support groups, and worked alongside Miss Turner to assist others who were grappling with similar family legal issues. My life had taken an unexpected path, but I embraced it wholeheartedly. From the depths of despair, I had emerged stronger, more determined, and empowered. I found peace not just in the justice that was served, but in the knowledge that my story could inspire and uplift others. My family faced the consequences of their actions. Their once perfect image was shattered. I didn't rejoice in their downfall, but I did feel a sense of closure. Looking forward, I knew the road wouldn't always be easy, but I was prepared for whatever lay ahead. The toxic people in my life had faced their karma, and I, Maria, have found my triumph. And now, I have a question for you. If you were in Maria's position, would you have chosen to legally confront your family, or would you have sought a different path to find closure and move on? This choice is full of emotional and moral complexities. What would you do and why? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share your opinions in the comments.
Hey, I'm Jack. I'm 17, a high school senior, and let's just say my life's a joke. My parents treat me like I'm invisible, mostly because I'm not the golden athlete my sister Mia is. She's 16, a year younger, but apparently flawless in their eyes. They act like she's some gift to the world, and I'm just here. Picture this. I'm living in our basement, which is basically a damp, musty dungeon. My mattress is lumpy, my desk is barely standing, and the lamp flickers like it's constantly on the edge of dying. Mia, on the other hand, has the nicest room upstairs, pink walls, fluffy carpet, and a chandelier. Yeah, an actual chandelier. I remember scoring the winning goal at my soccer game when I was around 9, thinking they'd finally be proud. They barely looked up from their phones. But when Mia won her first track meet, it was like a national holiday. Trophies, banners, you name it. School isn't much better. I'm barely scraping by in most subjects. Art is my escape. I can lose myself for hours sketching or painting. I showed Dad one of my drawings once, hoping maybe he'd be impressed. He just grunted, asking if I'd finished my chores. "Why don't you try out for a real sport instead of wasting time on that artsy crap?" he said. Thank God for Jake, my best friend since middle school. He gets it. He's always encouraging me to create. "Dude, your stuff is amazing. You gotta enter that art contest Miss Thompson told us about," he said last week. I just shrugged. What's the point? Any prize money would probably go to Mia's new running shoes. Dinner last night. A joke. Mom made this huge roast, Mia's favorite, of course. She turned to her, all smiles. "So, Mia, honey, how was practice today?" Mia launched into a long story about lap times and how her coach thinks she might qualify for state. Dad was beaming. I cleared my throat. "Oh, I got a B+ on my English essay." Crickets. Then Dad just said, "Pass the potatoes." I passed the bowl, my hands shaking, swallowing down this urge to scream, flip the table, anything to make them see me. But instead, I sat there, invisible as usual. After dinner, I headed back to my basement cave, hearing them laughing upstairs, probably planning Mia's next big celebration. I pulled out my sketchbook, letting my frustration pour onto the paper. Maybe one day they'll see me. Maybe one day I'll matter. But right now, I'm just the kid in the basement, forgotten and dreaming of the day I can break free. Then the house exploded with excitement. Mia won some big track meet. Mom and Dad were practically dancing around the living room. Our little superstar. Mom gushed, hugging Mia like she'd saved the world. Dad was on the phone, telling everyone within earshot about her victory. I slipped past them toward the door. They didn't even glance my way. At school, Miss Thompson caught me after class. "Jack, have you thought about entering the Riverside art competition? The deadline's next month." I shrugged. "What's the point?" She looked at me serious. "The point is, you have real talent, Jack. This could be a big opportunity." Her words stuck in my head that night. Then, while grabbing a snack, I overheard Mom and Dad talking in the study. Mia's coach said she could go all the way to the Olympics with the right training, Dad was saying. "But it's so expensive," Mom replied. "Where would we get that kind of money?" Silence. Then Dad said, "Well, there's Jack's college fund. It's not like he's using it." I felt like I'd been punched. I burst into the room. "You can't do that. That's my money." They looked at me, shocked. "Jack, this is a private conversation," Mom said. "Private? You're talking about taking away my future." Dad stood up, towering over me. "Listen here, young man. We make the decisions in this family. Yeah, decisions that only benefit Mia. I shot back. Don't you dare talk about your sister that way. Dad roared, his face red. Or what? You'll send me back to the basement. Oh wait, you already did. Before I knew it, Dad shoved me hard. I stumbled, slamming my arm against the desk. Pain shot through my wrist. Get out of my sight, he growled. The next day, my wrist was swollen and purple. Miss Thompson noticed right away. Jack, what happened? I don't know why, but I just broke down, everything pouring out, the basement, the favoritism, the college fund, all of it. She listened, her face growing more concerned with every word. When I finished talking, Miss Thompson took a deep breath, her expression serious. Jack, this is serious. We need to document everything. She helped me write down dates, incidents, every single detail, and even took pictures of the bruises on my ribs. We might need this, she said quietly, just in case. As I left her classroom, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, someone was finally on my side. Over the next few weeks, I poured everything into my art project. Every sleepless night, every overlooked achievement, every bit of pain and frustration. All of it went onto that canvas. I worked in secret, hiding my progress from my parents. They wouldn't understand anyway. One afternoon, Mia stopped me on the way to the basement. Hey, can we talk? She looked hesitant, almost guilty. I eyed her suspiciously. About what? I've been noticing how Mom and Dad treat you. It's not fair, she said, her voice soft. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, you're noticing now? After all these years? She looked away. I'm sorry. Save it, Mia. You've had plenty of chances to speak up. Enjoy your golden child status. I pushed past her, ignoring the hurt look on her face. Too little, too late. The next day, Jake came over, a backpack full of tiny cameras. He held one up. You sure about this, man? I nodded, determined. Miss Thompson says we need solid evidence. It's the only way. We set up cameras around the house, one in the living room, another in the kitchen, and a hidden one in my basement room. It felt wrong, but I was desperate. Then, a few days later, disaster struck. I came home to find Mom and Dad standing in my basement, surrounded by shredded pieces of my artwork. What is this garbage? Dad bellowed, holding up scraps of my contest piece. It's not garbage. It's my art. I yelled back, voice shaking. Mom shook her head. Art won't get you anywhere, Jack. We're doing this for your own good. I watched, numb, as they destroyed months of work. Tears streamed down my face, but they didn't even notice. The next day, I told Miss Thompson what happened. Her face hardened, her eyes fierce. This ends now, she said. She reached into her drawer and pulled out a key. Here, it's for the art supply closet. You can work here after school. I'll make sure no one disturbs you. For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into recreating my piece. This time, it was darker, more raw. I painted a boy trapped in a glass box, watching his family laugh and celebrate on the other side. The boy's face was a mask of pain and longing. Meanwhile, the cameras at home kept rolling. They caught everything. Every dismissive comment, every ignored plea for attention, every moment of favoritism toward Mia. Jake helped me compile the footage, and my stomach churned as I watched my life play out on screen. Dude, this is messed up, Jake whispered, shaking his head. I nodded, my face grim. Yeah, but now we have proof. The night before the contest deadline, I finally finished my piece. Miss Thompson gasped when she saw it. Jack, this is incredible. It's so powerful. I stared at the canvas, at the raw expression of my truth. You think it has a chance? I asked quietly. Miss Thompson squeezed my shoulder. More than a chance. This could change everything. The day of the contest arrived, and my stomach twisted with nerves. I stood by my painting as judges and visitors passed by. Some stopped, staring at it with wide eyes. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Then, over the loudspeaker, I heard, "First place goes to Jack Anderson." I couldn't believe it. Me, first place. As I accepted the award, cameras flashed, and a reporter approached me. "Can you tell us about your piece?" I took a deep breath. It's about feeling invisible in your own home. About being pushed aside and forgotten. The reporter's eyes narrowed. "Is this based on personal experience?" I nodded, my voice barely steady. Yes, it is." That's when everything exploded. My story was everywhere. Local news, social media. Headlines screamed, "Talented artist exposes family neglect." A few days later, Child Protective Services showed up at our house. A few days later, I handed over the video evidence Jake and I had collected. The CPS worker's expression grew darker with each clip. When it ended, she looked at me, her eyes full of sympathy. "This is serious, Jack. You've been incredibly brave." My parents were in shock. They couldn't believe the image of their perfect family was unraveling. Mom burst into tears. "How could you do this to us?" she wailed. Dad was more direct. "You ungrateful little." But he was cut off by the CPS worker. "Sir, I suggest you remain silent." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of interviews and court dates. My parents faced charges of neglect and emotional abuse. The look on their faces when the judge announced the verdict, guilty on all counts, was something I'll never forget. The court decided I should live with my Aunt Lisa and Uncle Tom, Mom's sister and brother-in-law. They were nothing like my parents. They helped me set up a real bedroom. No basement this time. "You're safe now, kiddo," Uncle Tom said, ruffling my hair. Aunt Lisa added, "And we're so proud of you." Those words, I'd waited my whole life to hear them. 2 years flew by. I'm in art school now, on a full scholarship. My work's been displayed in a few galleries, and I've even sold some pieces. Life's good. As for my parents, last I heard, they were struggling. Dad lost his job when the story broke, and Mom's perfect mother reputation shattered. They tried to reach out, but I'm not interested. Mia reached out recently, too. She's in college now and even gave up track. She said she wants to reconnect, to make things right. I thought about it for a long time before replying. "I'm glad you're doing well, Mia, but I'm not ready for a relationship. Maybe someday, but not now. Take care." When I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was putting myself first. My art, my dreams, my happiness. That's what matters now. Looking back, that scared kid in the basement feels like a different person. I made it out. I survived. And now I'm thriving. That's the best revenge of all. So here's my question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you ever forgive Mia? She knew what was happening, but stayed silent for years. Now she wants to reconnect. Is it too late for second chances, or should family always get another shot? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
Hey there, I'm Margaret, a 19-year-old girl from Ohio. Art's my thing. It's what keeps me going when everything else feels like it's falling apart. Margaret, how many times do I have to tell you to clean up this mess? My mom's sharp voice pierces through my bedroom door. "Coming, Mom." I yell back, sighing as I head downstairs. Passing the hallway mirror, I catch a glimpse of myself, long brown hair in a messy bun, paint splatters across my oversized t-shirt. Mom is waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, with a look of exasperation. "Look at you," she scoffs. "How do you expect to find a decent job looking like that? You need to start thinking about your future, Margaret." I bite my tongue, fighting back tears. I am thinking about my future, Mom. I want to go to art school in London. She laughs, a harsh, disbelieving sound. Art school in London? Don't be ridiculous. You need a real career, not some pipe dream. Later, I'm in Mr. Thompson's art class, the one place I feel truly at home. These are outstanding, Margaret, he says, flipping through my portfolio. Have you thought about applying to art schools? I nod. I want to go to London, but my mom. He cuts me off. Don't let anyone dim your light, Margaret. You have real talent. After class, I meet up with my best friend Amelia at our favorite cafe. So how'd it go with Mr. T? She asks. He loved my work, I say with a grin, but then sigh. You know my mom, she'd freak if she knew I was even thinking about it. Amelia rolls her eyes. Your mom needs to chill. You deserve to follow your dreams. That night, I'm sketching in my room when I hear a knock. It's Dad's birthday, and I've just finished a portrait of him from an old photo. Come in, I call. But it's Mom who enters, her gaze landing on the sketch. Is that your father? She snaps. It's his birthday, Mom. He's still my dad. She grabs the sketchbook from my hands. This is why you're so unrealistic about your future, always living in a fantasy world. I reach for my sketchbook, but she holds it out of reach. Mom, please. Enough, she snaps, her gaze landing on my hair. Your hair. It's always in your face. How can we even see to draw? She grabs a pair of scissors from my desk, moving toward me too quickly for me to stop her. Before I know it, she's hacking away at my hair, long strands falling to the floor. Mom, stop. I cry, but it's too late. She steps back, a twisted smile on her face. There. Now you can see clearly. Maybe now you'll start seeing reality instead of your silly dreams. I rush to the mirror, horrified at the uneven, choppy mess. Tears spill down my face as I touch the jagged ends. Oh, stop crying, she scoffs. You look fine, or at least as fine as an ugly duckling can look. She leaves the room, and I sink to the floor, my heart breaking. I curl up on my bed, sobbing as I run my fingers through what's left of my hair. My phone buzzes. It's Amelia. Hey, what's up? She cut my hair, Amelia. I managed between sobs. She called me an ugly duckling. I'm coming over now, Amelia replies. 20 minutes later, she's climbing through my window. She gasps when she sees me. Oh, Margaret, we need to get you out of here. We spend hours talking, planning. She mentions London again, and suddenly it doesn't seem so impossible. Mr. Thompson, I murmur. He might be able to help. The next day at school, I corner Mr. Thompson after class. His eyes widen when he sees my hair, but he doesn't comment. Mr. Thompson, I need help. I want to go to London, but I don't know how. I might have an idea. Give me a few days. A few days later, he has good news. Margaret, I've arranged for you to attend a summer art program in London. It's a great opportunity to get your foot in the door. I'm stunned. But how will I afford it? It's all taken care of. Consider it an investment in your future. That afternoon, while searching for a sketch pad in my mom's office, I stumble upon a stack of letters addressed to me from various art schools, including acceptance letters. That night, I confront my mom, my hands shaking as I hold the letters. How could you hide these from me? Of those, I was protecting you from disappointment. You're not cut out for art school, Margaret. You don't get to decide that. I shout, years of frustration pouring out. You've been controlling my life, putting me down, making me feel worthless. But guess what? I'm not worthless. I'm talented, and I'm going to prove it. Mom's face turns red with anger. You ungrateful brat, after everything I've done for you. Everything you've done? You mean like cutting my hair, calling me ugly, making me feel like I'm never good enough? I'm your mother. I know what's best for you. No, you don't. But I know what's best for me, and it's not here. I run to my room, locking the door behind me. With shaking hands, I call Amelia. It's time, I say. I'm leaving. That night, I pack quickly, shoving clothes and art supplies into my backpack. Amelia is waiting in her car down the street. As we drive away, I feel a mix of terror and exhilaration. I'm leaving everything I know behind. But for the first time in my life, I feel free. You okay? Amelia asks, glancing over at me. I took a deep breath, watching my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. Yeah, I think I finally am. We drove through the night toward the airport, a new day dawning. I was ready to start my new life. "London, here I come," I whispered as I stepped off the plane at Heathrow. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst. The bustling airport was overwhelming. A whirlwind of accents and languages swirled around me, making me feel like a tiny fish in a vast, unfamiliar ocean. Clutching my backpack tighter, I whispered to myself, "You've got this, Margaret," summoning courage I wasn't sure I had. I made my way to the student housing where I'd be staying for the summer program. Fumbling with the key, I finally managed to unlock the door, just as it swung open, revealing a girl with vibrant blue hair and an infectious smile. "You must be Margaret. I'm Jade, your roommate. Come on in." Jade's warmth instantly put me at ease. As we unpacked, she shared stories of her life as a fashion design student from Manchester. "London's a bit mad at first," she said, laughing as she helped me hang up clothes. "But you'll love it, I promise." That night, as I lay in my new bed, homesickness hit me like a wave. I found myself thinking of Mom, wondering if she was worried. Then I remembered the incident with my hair, and a familiar knot tightened in my stomach. Determined to move forward, I threw myself into my art classes. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who truly understood my passion. "Margaret, your use of color is extraordinary," my instructor, Miss Patel, remarked one day. "Have you considered applying to art schools here?" I beamed with pride, feeling a confidence I'd never known. But London life wasn't always rosy. The busy streets and unfamiliar customs sometimes left me feeling lost. One day, I burst into tears, overwhelmed while trying to navigate the tube. "Hey, you okay?" a kind voice asked. I looked up to see Tom, a fellow student in my program. From that day on, Tom became a friend, showing me around London and helping me adjust. To make ends meet, I started working part-time at a quaint cafe near our housing. The owner, Mrs. Thompson, no relation to my teacher back home, took me under her wing. "You're doing great, love," she'd say, smiling as I mastered making the perfect cup of tea. One evening, as I sketched in the park, my phone buzzed. A message from Mom. My stomach dropped as I read her words. "Margaret, this rebellious phase has gone on long enough. Come home now, or I'll cut you off completely. No more money, no more support. You'll be on your own." I stared at the screen, anger and fear churning within me. Then, taking a steadying breath, I typed my reply. "I'm already on my own, Mom, and I'm doing just fine." I turned off my phone and went back to my sketch, my hand steady and sure. London was challenging, yes, but it was also freeing. For the first time in my life, I was in control, and despite the struggles, I wouldn't have it any other way. Finally, the day of the student exhibition arrived, and my heart raced. My latest piece, a vibrant abstract painting depicting my journey from Ohio to London, was on display. As I stood nervously by my work, I heard whispers of admiration. "Margaret, darling, this is exceptional," Miss Patel exclaimed, leading over a distinguished-looking man. "This is Mr. Blackwood from the Royal College of Art. He'd like to speak with you." As we chatted, my heart swelled with excitement and hope. Then I felt a gentle tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I froze. It was Dad, standing right in front of me, looking older than I remembered, but with the same kind eyes. "Hello, Margaret," he said, his voice soft. "You've grown into a beautiful young woman." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Dad, why are you here? Why did you leave?" He sighed deeply, regret evident in his gaze. "I'm so sorry, Margaret. I never wanted to leave you. Your mother, she gave me an ultimatum. Leave or she'd make sure I never saw you again. I thought leaving would protect you, but I see now that was a mistake." Before I could respond, a familiar voice sliced through the crowd. "Margaret Marie Parker." My blood ran cold as I watched my mother storm toward us, her face contorted with rage. "So this is where you've been hiding?" Playing artist in London. Margaret's decision to distance herself from her mother reflects a powerful journey towards self-preservation. Throughout her life, her mother consistently undermined her dreams, imposed rigid control, and even attempted to sabotage her happiness. Her mother's destructive actions, cutting Margaret's hair, hiding her acceptance letters, and emotionally manipulating her, left deep scars. When Margaret finally found her freedom and her voice, maintaining boundaries was essential to protect her newfound sense of self. Yet, forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean resuming a close relationship. It's about releasing anger and hurt to find peace, while still honoring what she endured. Margaret's journey to self-worth meant she could no longer subject herself to her mother's harmful influence, even as she worked on healing. In time, therapy and self-reflection might allow her to forgive, if she chooses, without compromising her boundaries or her hard-won freedom. The line between forgiveness and self-preservation varies for everyone. Some people find healing in reconnecting, while others feel healthier maintaining distance. For Margaret, her art and her support system enabled her to move forward independently, leaving room to choose, when she's ready, if she wants to let her mother back into her life.